Ahead and get started, and then folks will be trickling in. I'm Roger Cooley. I'm with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, supporting the 2024 Fall Mixer, Scaling for Success, Supplier Development Tools for Farms and Food Businesses, hosted by the Good Food Purchasing Initiative team, who work with many of our partners to make Chicagoland food system more equitable, transparent, with local, sustainable, fair, humane, and nutritious food. Our work includes shifting institutional procurement through the Good Food Purchasing Program, while also uplifting suppliers with resources through events such as this. And thanks for coming to this session on building new markets around social impact. And excited to have Vincent Peak share his experiences, tools, and approach. So handing it over to Vincent.
Yeah, Roger, thank you so much. My name is Vincent Peak. I'm the founder of ShareFarm. We've been building a new style of measurement, impact, and verification around this type of marketplace Roger was just highlighting. Some details about myself. I'll share a little bit of history of what has taken ShareFarm down this road into this space of social impact measurement and building new markets around demand. And I'll show a presentation around those concepts to highlight more of the attributes that we're trying to target. And I'll close out a little early just so we could do a little bit of Q&A because similar for me, I want to find what barriers that exist in other sectors for other companies, farmers, distributors, procurement teams. If they have questions around our type of model, I want to open the floor up to answering those types of things. So that'll be the flow for me. I'll start by sharing a presentation and moving into some history of ShareFarm and the social impact dashboard that we've built. Myself, I'm out of Eastern Washington. I'm in Spokane, just north of Spokane, maybe 30 minutes. We run a smart farm out here. So it's very small. It's a micro farm, just 12 acres, but it's just my wife and I, and we've really packed everything into it. Market garden, greenhouses, orchard, vineyard, an apiary, chickens, sheep, pretty much everything, and really started selling into local markets 2010. And really found a lot of discrepancies in ROI in those markets and started some corporate dining, direct home delivery, got contracted by USDA to build out a tool. All of our previous tools were software. And that's what really put us in this place, is trying to solve this issue around market demand and transitioning to regenerative around social impact. So ShareFarm initially launched as a way to share the story of individual farms in the value chain and how they're differentiated from other commodity types. And pretty early, like I just detailed the chronology of what we've been doing at ShareFarm, we found some issues in this space. And for everyone here today, I think that it's pretty aware, I'm preaching to the choir here. But what we ran into was issues with the current market. Now, the market is a chicken and an egg setup. Buyers, they're participating in general, and we've been private facing for most of our history, is they're looking for supply. And so in the supply-based market, it is a volume over price game. Smaller farms don't have the right types of volumes to enter these larger markets and interact with these types of customers. The problem with this is in supply-based models, having the right type of volume, historic relationships with these types of buyers, smaller farms have not had access to. So breaking into these markets is pretty challenging. If they need to scale up, increase volumes, they need to know what to grow. And for the most part, a lot of the private style procurement teams don't share what they're looking to buy. Farms are growing products in hopes that they sell these items. And that's really what's gone on, for the last few decades in farming, as we've moved into more monoculture style of procurement, is that volume over price model has been exclusionary to smaller farms. These larger buyers are now looking for ways to differentiate supply chain, and they want to detail the chain of custody of the farm, animal rights, labor welfare, diversity in farming, diversity in SKUs of products. All of this has to provide farm level data at the source of aggregation. And some people have been great at this, especially the Good Food Purchasing Program. And what we're trying to do is take this to the next step by solving this problem for farms. Is they need price stability. They need to know demand, and they need to get away from the supply model, which is functioning off of commodity pricing. And how to do that, right? Everyone's trying to get farms into regenerative, into climate smart commodities, but in whole, the risk is onto the farm. The farm is taking all the risks to implement new crop types, diversify products, invest in capital infrastructure with no guarantee of customer. And so this transition into regenerative has been a problematic one. Where we see a solution in this, developing new market access, a demand-based purchasing model, and regional price stability, is providing the farms a way to differentiate themselves in the marketplace using social impact attributes. And really, it's an index for farms to differentiate themselves by first having a dedicated customer. Once the farms have a dedicated customer who detail what type of attributes they're looking to source from, the farm is removed from a lot of that risk. So the farm has a dedicated customer. They know what to grow, what type of growing practice. If this is in animal welfare, rotational grazing, quadrant grazing, planting trees in pastures, if this is the other side of this in produce, leaving residue, using compost, organic, regenerative certification, having that type of attribute ahead of time, the farms know what the incentive is with the customer. They can better plan their ROI around a demand-based model. And so that's been the focus for us, is building out this demand-based model for anyone to incorporate, because it removes a lot of that risk for the farm, but it provides that foundation to move into regenerative style of agriculture and climate smart commodities where there's not so much uncertainty and risk. And really what it looks like, and this is an example that we've put together, and I know that plenty of people are doing this on their own, but a simple example is first going to a partner, a food buying partner, identifying their goals. How we've gone about it is using the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and targeting those to corporate KPIs and metrics. And again, we've been private facing with this for a while. So that's really how we started pushing this thing out, was how do we marry the shareholder accountability, the ESG, the social impact goals, the sustainable regenerative sourcing targets, match that into target KPIs that farms, they can sign up into that procurement channel with that team, and they're detailed in this index that allows procurement team to purchase not based on just individual socio-demographics or volume of products, but target attributes. And having these farms differentiated an index of target attributes with defensible metrics, a third-party independent verifier, allows procurement teams to purchase based on target attributes in their region where they're improving goals, shareholder accountability, and brand positioning. And so we've had some good success with this over the years. I mean, really what customers are getting is, and different side of the market here is a regulatory requirement that right now is just focused on California, but will be popping up into more areas soon, is climate accountability. And if procurement team has the capability to identify farms based on socio-demographic, diversity, women, veteran, LGBTQ, and then also their growing practice. Are they doing heirlooms, regenerative organic? Are they making compost? How is farm labor treated? Anonymous farm labor surveys across the spectrum, so we can have more transparency into what differentiates individual farms and supply chain. So we're not stuck in supply-based models where a lot of that process is extractionary to a farm. If we get into demand-based procurement and forecasted commitments to farms, we remove a lot of that risk to the farm themselves and can incentivize this transition to regenerative. A lot of the systems that we've seen around this, and we're not the only ones doing this, is impact measurement management. A lot of it is Excel sheet and forms, 20 pages per crop type. We've made a system. It's an open API that allows farms to gamify this process. It's a map of their location. They circle it, select whichever different types of land. If they only have one pasture, one market garden, they can circle it and detail the types of attributes or growing practices that they're doing there. And it makes it easier for a procurement team to see. And this process has been pretty simple. So farms can implement this practice now and craft their individual farmer profile. How we've been going about doing this is finding a customer first. That's that demand component that I've been discussing here, is having a dedicated customer who wants to have a strategic partnership around this type of identity preserved sourcing. Once we can identify a target customer, what attributes they're looking for, what region, what type of farm or socio-demographic that they want to improve on, that creates the baseline for us to do that type of identity preserved sourcing. And this has been pretty simple. I showed this example to you maybe just 2 slides ago. This is an example of a farmer index that we've been using to differentiate farms so they can be competitive in this space where they don't have lots of volume, but what they do have is unique stewardship attributes. And so having that index has allowed us to create target roadmaps where we can do that identity preserved sourcing and instantly improve KPIs and metrics at the corporate level. We've had some success with this. Again, we've been on a different side of this for a while. This year, we just signed with USDA, Region 5 Food Business Center, and become more public facing, as their targets are K-12, institutional, hospital, schools. We pitched this idea with commodities early on with Cargill and got in with UNFI doing identity preserved sourcing. Right now, we're in 25 states with UNFI doing sourcing by attributes, not by volume. And this attribute model allows us to do price plus premiums. These growers that we're targeting have not participated in larger markets, palletization, GAP certifications. They don't have trucks and loading docks. This partnership with UNFI has allowed us to solve a lot of these gaps. UNFI comes, picks up. We aggregate with a central hub to have that cold chain with a group GAP certification. A lot of the farms were able to start bringing them into this type of supply chain where even if they have only a few pallets, we're aggregating volume with regional hub partners to deliver higher volume commitments. So it's been an interesting process. We're still learning. We're building on more strategic partnerships with Compass, with Iowa Kansas Tribe, and then USDA Region 5. So it's been an interesting process. We're trying to implement this style of procurement, demand-based, and a social impact index across the spectrum to really solve this problem for farms entering the market, having more support, getting those price plus premiums to be able to scale over time. Because some of those things that we'll hear that farms haven't had access to the market, they don't have the right volume, the food safety certifications, they don't have consistent quality over time. A lot of that can be solved by dedicated commitments in those smaller volumes, in forecast for a farm, and scale up those volumes over time so they can meet those overall demands. How we've been launching these is in very small pilots, exactly what they're needed for, a couple pallets. If a farm can meet that type of volume to show proof of concept with these food buying teams, we can diversify based on stewardship attributes, socio-demographics, and scale these farms up over time. We've had a great success with this so far, still looking to scale and grow it. But I do think that this is a solution for farms to incentivize into this regenerative space, climate smart commodities, move from much smaller volumes into higher capacities by having those dedicated commitments, scaling into this larger networks of procurement, especially for rural farms who want to scale up and grow, want to have consistency, consistent quality, even scaling the volumes that they're at really is based on demand first. And once you have that, I think it solves both sides of this equation. And I'll reiterate this piece because it's been a huge focus for us in success of this is for us, not just focusing on equity alone, but including that socioeconomic impact of the grower in a consistent report that matches corporate metrics, allows them to reach their goals more consistently, having that type of information on hand rather than not knowing where diverse growers are in whichever region they're at. Having that index on hand, procurement teams have more tools that they can leverage to achieve goals and complete their procurement tasks. And that's all from my presentation there. But really, what I want to do is open it up for any Q&A. I know that a lot of times that we've talked about demand-based procurement and social impact attributes before, we've had a lot of questions. So I wanted to leave the rest of the time to answer any questions that may exist, even barriers that are perceived to exist in a model like this, but open it up for dialogue.
Great, thanks, Vincent. That's a lot of exciting developments there.
It's been fun. I think that one of the most challenging things that we've ran into is aligning goals with what the corporate targets are. And I think once we've understood what the target metrics are around social impact, regenerative spending targets, or even diversity alone, allows us to utilize that as a procurement opportunity to say, procurement team wants to buy heirloom tomatoes in this region for these target attributes, and they want more growers to participate. All the grower really needs is a dedicated customer. And once they have that dedicated customer, they're going to grow what's most in demand because it has the least amount of risk, contrary to how the current model functions. So we do think it's a solution.
Yeah. So when you're figuring out or trying to understand what the client customer goals are those generally like ESG goals or other kind of standards that they're pulling from, and also trying to find ones that have the most crossover, that are similar across multiple standards?
I'm going to say yes, that we've tackled a lot of decision makers in ESG specifically. A lot of the focus has been trying to find any executive decision maker with an earmarked budget who can launch a small pilot like this to show how beneficial to the company's bottom line indirectly this improves the bottom line by focusing on those attributes first. It's been a bigger success for us going that route than just equity alone, because by region, by company, everyone has a different interpretation of what that means. So I think in that route where we've experienced, it's been harder to set procurement just based on that alone, because it's altered and it changed depending on what region you're in, depending on what company you're talking to. And so that's why we've wanted to move away from that model altogether. I'm just answering question. Did I answer your question all the way there?
No, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, ESG teams has been a focus for us. It's really just find an executive decision maker. So on the private side of companies, they've got dedicated ESG teams, sustainability teams, social impact directors. Those are really the people that we're going after who can provide incentive downstream or across different departments from them to help set goals or have an internal champion to get something like this moving. Because it is so different, I do think that initially it's it's hard to perceive, I would say, um, in some roles at the procurement level, because procurement, in the most part, and again, we've been looking at private side, is least amount of trucks, least amount of vendors, lowest price. Sometimes they'll do token spend for equity, but it's not a institutional style change. And by aligning with the corporate goals and finding a decision maker, targeting attributes has allowed us to be able to better facilitate spend based on socioeconomic impact. In my opinion, small farms are ones that can fill a pallet. And I'd say even the smaller farms that we've interacted with in Seattle, who've only been K-12 focused for a while now, I mean, even if that's herbs, we found great success with herbs. We've been doing lots of apples, onions. I know, for instance, a really rural farm in or an urban setting that's just getting started, that may not be realistic. But also, I think that there's plenty of other models that allow that type of grower who's really small to access some type of market access around that. Where we've been focusing is, yeah, definitely at least a pallet, because where these are going to go is into grocery, into food service. And a piece for us is sharing that story with that product. So it should be more, than I'd say 50 pounds, should definitely be more than 50 pounds of product per SKU. We associate a QR code on spend when we move products. So an example, I'm just answering a question here from Carmen. An example that we've done before is a tribal farm in central Washington called the Yakama Nation, looking for market access to sell onions and potatoes. UNFI helped us find a downstream customer, a grocery store, who wanted to showcase those types of attributes in store as a product class to market to their customers. That product retained a higher margin on store shelves, but also paid the farm that we connected with that channel more money for those products, which was fantastic. So urban farms, I think it just depends on volume. Farms are so different. Small farm, all of those things are really dependent on capital infrastructure. And I think that's one of the hardest pieces to tackle for a farm, is solving that cold chain, trucks, loading docks, palletization schedules, doing the right pack sizing. I know that in the K-12 setting, that's a little more simpler of a process. And we've only done a few sales into that market before. But yeah, I would say that capital infrastructure is in the missing piece. And so we've had some good success working with UNFI to have them come pick up from farms, which is a huge deal in solving that. Finding customers. Yeah, I think that this is one of the hardest processes for a model like this, actually, is finding partners who have made public commitments to regenerative spend, to climate smart commodities, climate smart growing practice, socioeconomic commitments with the farmers, ownership themselves over a farm. I think it's a hard process, especially for us. So I don't think that it's cut and dry, a simple solution by any means. But yeah, it's definitely for us to find customers. We're going after published public commitments on creating price stability for growers, targeting socioeconomics, regions, or new varieties of products. Buyers are looking for types of products in our region, gray squash that isn't grown a lot, and so they import from Nogales. And if they had a local option, they'd buy it from that grower. So it's getting that person that we're talking to give a contract to a target base of growers that we've identified to grow that product in the forthcoming year. And so that's really how we've gone about it, is looking at historical procurement, what's forecasted as a possible commitment in a small pilot, what can we do based on target attribute to get growers an opportunity at that. And they need to know what the product is ahead of time, all before a seed goes in the ground, negotiate price points, delivery dates, locations of delivery. That really simplifies it for the grower because now they're not out looking for markets or negotiating on price. They're getting a dedicated customer. They know what to grow. They're getting a price plus premium on that product. And if there's some gaps in the ability to have cold chain for that type of product, we found a good partner who's been picking up from growers. Initially, I would say that our target was broadliners. And we've been growing in that space for the last 4 years. This year, we partnered with Compass Food Group, specifically their food buy catalog, to do BIPOC SKUs of products for smaller farms to access this type of market. And so it has been a different process based on who the customer is. I mean, in this sense, with UNFI, they're coming to pick up. They retain all of their own supply chain in the terms of distribution. For a different type of company, say a food service institution, the ones that we've been interacting with don't have their own distribution. They use a broadliner to deliver their products to their customers. And so the broadliner isn't going to pick up from the farm, so to speak. And so then it's facilitating freight, logistics, LTL, helping the farm with the BOL, getting check-in and dock times. And so it really just depends on the customer, what they're willing to do, what gaps still need to be filled that we can help the customer facilitate that. Yeah, I'd say the business model for ShareFarm is demand first. So we use a subscription. We're a subscription-based technology platform, which is an API that integrates with existing systems, and it is similar to any impact measurement verification system that exists. What we've built is an API, a corporate partner, that's been our focus, subscribes to this model. They give forecasted commitments based on what their target goals are. We charge the food buyer a subscription to do identity preserved sourcing. The farms don't pay to participate in this model. They're already at a disadvantage in these types of markets to be able to scale and grow. We're not taking money out of their pocket. What we've really built is a way to assist the corporate partners in facilitating goals, shareholder accountability, climate smart commodities, identity preserved supply chains, so they can market final products into retail or consumer facing, which we consider as a different product class because inherently it holds a higher margin of product, having that type of transparency to market to end consumers. The farm index, who grew it, where's it from, even in aggregate in the commodity space. We're not tracking individual products through supply chain. We're detailing the impacts of that first mile, trying to keep food more local without the multi-state sourcing as best that we can. We've had some requests for value-added products. And again, this is just, I think, a real slow thing that we've been building on over time. The value-added products, I think, is huge. And I think it's one of the missing gaps that we wish we could personally solve on our own and really haven't been. Again, we've been on the side of understanding requirements, commitments, helping facilitate identity preserved supply chain, and differentiating based on social impact attribute to have that defensible price plus premium. And where I think a huge gap is, and I know some companies that are doing this really well, Mad Markets is doing really well, is being able to take that identity preserved product and turn it into a value added item. And I think that's where I've seen a huge gap in the market, and very little requests. We've had some requests for some things. We've looked for things. We've been moving apples in Pacific Northwest to where we've been asked for value added apple chips and ciders to go into corporate dining. And yeah, that's absolutely a huge opportunity that we don't have a good answer for currently. But I think it is a huge missing opportunity if there was partners who could help make value-added products enter those markets. A lot of the larger companies that we've seen are buying those CPG type of items, especially if it is a diverse grower. There's a huge market for that value-added items, CPG, especially into the broadliners. But produce itself, I'm sure everyone here is aware, has been pretty challenging just because of how the market functions on commodity pricing and volume over price. A grower doing regenerative and good land stewardship is not going to be, it's not going to be easy to get good price points against USDA commodity pricing on those products. So yeah, value added, I think, is huge. If those types of partnerships exist, I think it's a slam dunk to be able to do that. Right now, the mandatory requirements are climate accountability. That's really came out of the EU. They've been doing it for 2 years. It was just passed by the SEC last April, but it's only focused on California right now, hopefully implemented more across the spectrum. But yeah, Climate Smart, I think, there's two sides of the fence on it. It is or it isn't important. And I think that's where we really try and stay away from those types of things, is just detailing, sharing the story of the farm. Their social and economic impact of growing is irrelevant of those things, whether people believe in it or not. If we leave it down to the story of the farm, how they're differentiating, improving the economic in their area. A friend of mine said this best, actually works with Chicago Food Action Policy Council, and removing the concept of a farm as a hobbyist. In general, that's how people view them. My friend Justin, he said, the best way to move into this is to change the narrative that we think about farms as drivers of economic change. And I love that, because that's exactly what we need to move into this space. The more we procure from these farms, the more food system security we have, nodes of resilience, assured provisioning, because we've committed volumes to these farms over time, they've grown. And having those nodes of resilience really allows us to do that. Using that framework to think about farms allows us to look at a farm as a driver of economic change. And the more we procure from these farms, the more we're creating a price stabilized market. We're getting rid of labor shortages, global trade, changes in centralized procurement nodes that come or go. You really create resilience with assured provisioning and having those nodes ahead of time. So right now, yeah, the intention is what I've seen, public facing companies looking at this climate accountability reporting. A lot of the private food manufacturers are interested in it. But more widespread adoption, I think, is needed. And what we've seen is just hesitancy on adopting any of those practices, because people are unsure of what will happen, what direction things will go. And I think a way to get away from that is not to focus on it, as the primary means of procurement, but to focus on same thing that we're all talking about here, social impact and the economic driver of farms as systemic change. If that's how the farm is viewed, that is the story shared along with that procurement into retail or dining, creating that relationship with the end consumer, understanding that this is a different product. These are different types of growers, and this is the way to incentivize that change into better land stewardship, however we call it, building up these farms. Yeah, I think that this is huge for us, is finding growers. When we first started, we did the same thing. Sadly, we were a supply-based marketplace. We said, we'll sign up as many farms as we can, and we'll market their stuff to end customers. And the market is inundated with brokers. And it's really what it really becomes, is getting farms to sign up to have some type of total volume to market products downstream in a supply-based model. The market is inundated with brokers and marketplaces using the supply-based focus. And we transitioned from it in 2017. So we need demand first. And I know that some companies still do this, but same thing. If a company provides their historical procurement, which some are sensitive about, and commit any percentage of volume of potatoes, peaches, carrots, whatever the target item is, commit in forecast a percentage volume to a set of attributes. And so that's what we've been doing, and how we hopefully continue on this way is demand first. How we find growers is first by gaining dedicated commitment. So we'll find a partner who will provide us a pre-secured contract for a target region, a volume of product, for target attributes of growers, for set delivery dates, to say, hey, we've got type 1 heirloom tomatoes that are going to go into the Riverside market. And they're looking for growers who are doing regenerative, who are making compost, leaving living items in soil in the off season, or covering up their soil to prevent erosion. Whatever those attributes are, the company says upfront, and that's what they want to procure. They give us that demand ahead of time. Once we know the attributes of the demand in the region, we will then approach growers and say to a grower, I've got a large volume buyer with pre-secured contract for a commitment on these types of items. You meet the attributes. You are also growing this product currently, or you have in the past. We'd like to buy it from you at volume and pay a price premium that we negotiated from the customer. And that usually goes pretty well. I mean, they're not going to have to look in market ahead of season to find a potential partner to sell into. They don't need to negotiate prices. They're getting a premium price just by having this type of stewardship or socio-demographic target associated to them. So it's been interesting, but I wouldn't say that it's a slam dunk in any way. I think there's a whole lot of relational components that still go into it long before we get to that committed demand. I think that's all, Roger.
All right. Well, if anybody has I think we have a few more minutes if folks have one or two more final questions before we wrap. Just also wanted to highlight, I just dropped in the link for a survey. We're just trying to get a sense of what people are getting from these different events and sessions, and what the value is. And if there's any other focus for future events, we can make sure to make shifts.
And I'll drop my email in the chat if you want to discuss
Perfect.
offline. Be simple to just send me a hello.
You know I do, Roger. I'm always got one in the hole.
That's right.
This Carmen. I wanted to know, you indicated that when you first started, it was just you and your spouse. And over time, have you added employees to be able to maintain your level of production? Has your production level escalated in the last couple of years? And have you managed to have successful partnerships with other farmers that are of equal size? Now, I got an issue because every entity that I talk to, when I'm asking what is considered to be a small farm, no one can tell me specifically, not even the government, in terms of what amount of acreage or what amount of acreage is being produced to be able to determine it against a mid-size and a large farm. I know that's a lot packed into that, but I'm just nosy.
Yeah, and I've experienced the same thing when we hear companies say they want to source exclusively from small farms. Like, well, again, yeah, what does that mean? I think that it's pretty ambiguous across the spectrum, depending on who you're talking to. And so I like going with infrastructure as a means of evaluating farms based on size. If this farm has done specific pack sizing for institutional customers, they understand palletization schedules, they've got their own trucks, loading dock, cold chain, regardless of the size of their acreage, they're a larger farm. They possess capacity. And that's how I always view it. What type of capacity do they have? You could have thousands of acres and have no equipment, few labor hands, no experience in institutional markets, no trucks, no loading docks, no cold chain. It doesn't make you a big farm. You're missing a lot of that required infrastructure needed to scale and grow into these spaces. So I never go off acreage. I think that past performance would be indicative of the capacity of a farm, or a farm has scaled and grown up over time, looking for higher capacity with larger institutional customers, all really based around volume. And that's really indicative of current critical infrastructure. So that's always how I think about it. Does that answer your question?
Part of it. Thank you, though.
Yeah, fair enough.
Great. Well, thanks to everybody again for participating today and coming to this session with Vincent. Really excited for hearing about the awesome work of ShareFarm and the potential for overlaps and connectivity locally. Vincent, you said you were looking at wildlife cameras. Anything exciting in Eastern Washington that we wouldn't have here?
Oh, geez. Yeah, I've been closing down the farm, having more free time, just been out in the woods, hiking around, looking at game cameras. I like elk. They're just majestic, beautiful creatures. So I just spend a lot of time trying to document them.
All
It's
right.
entertaining to me.
Yeah, we more have scrawny urban deer around here. So
yeah, I wouldn't say they're too big here. Yeah, southern Idaho, maybe, hour and a half southeast of me. They're just beautiful, majestic out there. So yeah, I think that's what I'll be doing. We've closed our farm down this year pretty much. And yeah, I'll be doing some recreational stuff through winter.
all right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Please fill out